Thanks for watching this portion of Garage Logic today on our YouTube channel, and hit the subscribe button if you wouldn't mind. And also thanks to our friends at Everest Men's Health for sponsoring this. Go to everestmenshealth.com today to see if they can help you with better energy and better health. And catch the Garage Logic podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
All right, yesterday we spent time being puzzled by the release of a vaccine with unknown side effects, and apparently that's always been the case. But okay. I allowed myself to become alarmed by it. And we'll start with the first note from a woman named Stephanie who writes, I listened to your podcast and was absolutely embarrassed and appalled by the ignorance coming from you guys. I was so mad I took the time to write a long note on my phone explaining how wrong you all are. I listened to the show and have these points. Number one, the vaccine has been through all three phases required of a vaccine. You seemed confused by that. And it has been tested on thousands of children. There is nothing abnormal about this process. Phase 3 trials mean safety data has been collected for months on thousands of participants and compared to participants who received a placebo. Point 2, you like to use polio often as an example. Okay, once Salk invented his vaccine in 1952, the March of Dimes started the Salk vaccine trials that lasted 1 year. 1.8 million kids involved in the trials, only 12 months of safety. That's the norm. Number 3, the problem is we now live in a country filled with amateur public health experts who have somehow deemed this process unsavory. No, you're just only now learning about it and paying attention. This is the process. This is the deal. This is how the sausage is made. Point 4, work through your argument. An effective vaccine is found, or an effective drug, or an effective medical device, etc. It's tested for 12 months with no major side effects seen. Regulatory bodies approve it. It sounds like what you would like to happen is that we then collectively wait for a decade before using the vaccine, drug, device, and collect more safety data. Does that make sense? Should the logic be applied to Ford, Tesla, Old Dutch potato chips? Point 5, speaking of, I drive with my kids in the car. I let them watch screens. They swim a lot. They drink Sprite. All of these things have much worse safety data than the COVID-19 vaccine. People are really bad at accurately gauging risk. Point 6, Kenny seems to think that the government paying you $100 to get a vaccine was how the Romanovs fell. Please look up the 1905 Supreme Court ruling in Jacobson or the 1922 ruling in Zucht. States have the right to mandate vaccines, require them for school entrance, etc. All several decades before COVID. Again, nothing new here, just a lot of new students. 7, finally, what's this BS about shots versus vaccines? No vaccines in history are 100% effective. Just because you can still get a disease you're vaccinated against doesn't mean you didn't get a vaccine. This is illogical and childish. If a condom breaks, does it stop becoming a condom? If your headache isn't cured by an Advil, did you not take an anti-inflammatory? These are safe, effective vaccines, or as safe and effective as any vaccine ever is. I can't wait to vaccinate my kids. All right.
Oh, that was a good one. Give me the name, what I should look up again. You went through
the Romanovs. Apparently yesterday you said something about this is how the Romanovs feel. I think it's R-O-M, Roma, O-N.
1905?
Mm-hmm. Where is this point? What point? Kenny seems to think that the government is paying you $100 to get a vaccine was how the Romanovs feel. R-O-M-A-N-O-V-S. Romanov.
That's just an analogy, right?
Well, yeah, but apparently you used the wrong analogy.
I don't think I mentioned Romanov.
I don't know, but that's from a woman named Stephanie. Now I have one.
Mandate. Hold on.
From.
Just looked up.
Ready?
Mm-hmm. Right away. The first thing that comes up. September 10th, 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1905 that states have the police power to issue vaccine mandates, a decision upheld nearly 20 years later. So at least now I have, and it's from businessinsider.com, so I've got a story to click on. Thank you, Stephanie.
All right, now I have from Greg. Hello, gang. I listen every day and email frequently. I love the show, but even I have my limits. When listening to the show today, meaning yesterday, the topic of the FDA and CDC Considering authorization of the Pfizer vaccine for younger children came up. Expecting a reasoned discussion amongst the crew, I was instead met with, to my ears, an obscene amount of unwarranted skepticism regarding such a decision. I don't mean to lump the crew in with the anti-vax crowd, and you have all said that you aren't. We are not. And I heard the old canard about not knowing the possible side effects of such a vaccine. There are some folks out there who often use such a talking point about when speaking against vaccines in general, and yet those same people seem unconcerned with the very real and well-documented side effects of COVID-19 itself. When presented with a proven to be safe and effective means to combat said disease, these people remain aloof. Is that GL thinking or even being fact-based? I'm not saying that everyone should absolutely refuse to get the vaccine under any circumstances, but what exactly are people waiting to hear? How many times do they need to be told that these vaccines work, are safe, and are effective? If people don't trust the word of the FDA and the CDC, whose job it is to determine these things, who are they going to listen to? A more reasonable stance would have been to try and get an infectious disease expert such as Dr. Osterholm on to explain the decision and answer questions anyone might have to allay concerns. Why there's such resistance to measures of public health is beyond me, but I think we can still come together and do what's best for the greater good. I don't foresee any other way to effectively combat the pandemic than vaccination. So let's all help each other out and do our part. Good luck, Greg. Well, we've had Dr. Michael Osterholm on numerous times. We kicked this off with more than in February of 2020 with Dr. Mike Osterholm.
Yes, we did.
But that's well spoken as well.
Mm-hmm.
I am guilty of something. I just realized this listening to his letter. I'm guilty of something that I criticize others for, politicizing everything. And what set me off, and I probably didn't even bring it up on the air, is the governor and lieutenant governor and everybody else getting the booster and all
the
that.
Former governor, Palenti.
Well, that's where I'm going, Chris. And it set me off, and it didn't sit right with me. And then I started thinking just now during that letter, would I have reacted the same way if this would have been the Palenti administration? And I think I'm guilty of doing what I hate. I automatically politicize something I shouldn't have.
Which is the way the United States has gone.
Yeah.
Dear Joe, hail the Flashlight King.
Hail you.
Hail you.
Let me stop right there. I'm gobsmacked that this guy even listens to us.
Oh.
He's an esteemed medical professional who treats children at their moments of their worst illnesses.
You're saying he's way too smart to be listening to us,
I can't. I'm so pleased. I'm pleased that he's listening. As a dedicated listener, I feel compelled to comment on your discussion regarding childhood administration of the COVID vaccine. First, the technology upon which the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are based is the safest ever. It is indeed a vaccine. First, the technology, it is indeed a vaccine. We have trusted vaccines against polio, diphtheria, and chickenpox that are based on older and less perfect technology, but thank God we don't have to deal with those diseases anymore. Chickenpox wasn't awful for all children, but it results in painful shingles later in life, the death of immune-compromised people who contracted the virus with long-term complications in many. COVID is a much bigger problem. Now one of the top 10 causes of death in childhood. If kids don't die, many get terrible side effects like myocarditis, which happens far more in affected people than those vaccinated. In addition, they can pass the virus to older and more vulnerable people who do indeed die. I ran and got the Pfizer vaccine as soon as I could and have been boosted since. I got a sore shoulder 3 times. There are some like your sister who get their butt kicked by the immune response to the vaccine, but it beats getting the actual infection. Here is the problem. There are people who have been quoted regarding the issues who have no idea what the impact of their message is. They drive me crazy. The emergency use authorization approved by the FDA yesterday was based on exhaustive data from a very well-constructed and controlled clinical trial. In addition to adolescent and adult experience with the vaccine, stupid academicians who don't know the impact of their words spew out stupid I don't know statements that are chewed up and spit out like people like you and Kenny and Reavers who do know the power of their words. Take it from me, Joe, this vaccine is safe and COVID is real. Please help your audience to understand that. Please, you know how to find me if you need me, Chris Mortel. There's just one issue I would take with Chris's note. We have never denied that COVID isn't real.
Not once.
I don't think he's implying that. He just wants to reinforce the idea that COVID is real. We believe it is real.
And that's where I want to go, Joe, because some of the similar messaging coming from the three notes that you just read is we're being lumped into the crowd that's anti-vax, which is completely not true.
We're not anti-vax.
We're in the crowd that doesn't believe that COVID's a myth, which is completely not true.
We don't believe it's a myth.
But the other part that I'm really having a hard time with, and it's boiling up in me again, is who decided and when did they decide that we are now a republic in which only one line of thinking is allowed? Who and when was that decided that I'm no longer to have the choice of what I choose to do with my kids? Who made that decision? Because that's not fair. That's not what this country was founded and built upon. I have the right and the ability to do what I think is right for my children. Nobody else is going to do that, including the bleeping government.
Well,
This was covered in Steph's letter.
yeah, there's an answer to that. There's an answer to that.
Okay.
Your kids presumably currently have had a number of vaccines in order to even attend school.
True.
All right.
Yep.
What's the difference?
Well, those have been around for a very long time.
Well, but as Chris points out, the vaccines that now have not been around for a very long time have been achieved and accomplished with better technology than the ones that have been around a long time.
I knew that this was going to come up because what did I tell you after we got done doing the show yesterday? What did I tell you?
That we must have innately knew we went above our pay grade.
I looked at you and I said, I am going to get ripped, aren't I?
Well,
and it was before I even posted the show. And you said, I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly what you said.
So what if we get ripped?
Sure, I'm used to it.
Well, and you're not the only one. We all are. I think the sin we committed yesterday, or the mistake we made yesterday, was some naivete.
Sure.
We can't get to the point where you so distrust a government that you believe they would purposely launch a vaccine without data to prove their efficacy. That might be the fault we slip into occasionally, and that we can't go there. I don't want to get to the point where we think we live in a country, and again, that's the result of the politics entering this, because politicization is too hard to say. What does it say?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yesterday, when I read this guy from the FDA saying, well, we got to give it and see what happens, then I thought, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, now I know what it means. That's the way it's always been done.
Mm-hmm.
Always been done. And it's not being given without the prior 3 phases of testing.
Can I share with you one thing, knowing that this was going to come up today?
Yes.
I follow an account that I think all of you should, by the way. I should have told you this before the show began. I follow an account called COVID Clarity. Mm-hmm. This is an Ivy League medical professional who is a statistician on this very thing in the state of Minnesota. Oftentimes what information is being put out is information directly from the CDC. All right? So it's reputable. I know it is. And it's a great follow. It's called COVID Clarity if you want to follow it along Twitter like I do. An FDA panel voted to, this is just about a half an hour ago. An FDA panel voted to move forward with COVID vaccines for children ages 5 to 11. The CDC estimated that 42% of kids in this age group already had COVID as of June. Given the recent wave, it's likely that over half of kids currently in the United States already had COVID and have natural immunity. Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Isn't that a good thing?
That's a very good thing. Who said that on this show? Dr. Osterholm. Mm-hmm. That natural immunity is the best form.
That's the ultimate.
Is the ultimate form to battle COVID. And I also know that a lot of people with underlying health issues can't roll the dice in that regard, and I completely understand that. Mm-hmm. Weighted SARS-CoV-2 infection-induced seroprevalence, which is, of course, I looked that word up because it was a bleep you word, the level of a pathogen in a population as measured in blood serum. Okay? Children consistently have higher seroprevalence estimates than adults. Ages 5 to 11 have the highest seroprevalence, but confidence intervals overlap with other pediatric age groups. Age 5 to 11 increased from 13% in November of 2020 to 42% in June of 2021, and likely more than 50% currently. The number of infectious per cases or per reported case in the general population, median 2.4, is 2.0 to 3.9%.
Stop. What are you trying to demonstrate?
I'm trying to demonstrate that kids that are getting COVID are likely not even realizing that they have COVID, and that natural immunity is their best long-term option.
Okay, now that's going to
Yep,
that's going to result
in hate mail.
in
That's
getting
fine.
3 more of these brilliant emails.
I know, but and here's my basic point. Okay, and I said this yesterday, and
I think I just figured it out, by the way, but go ahead. I think I just had a light bulb go off in my head.
I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. It's a comfort thing. If Stephanie wants to vaccinate her children, you go right ahead. If that's going to make you feel better, absolutely. I am not going to stand in your way. I am not going to shout you down. That's your choice. But I also expect the same respect when I make a decision for my children, because that's my choice, not the government's.
What if it comes to the point where, in order to attend school, they must be vaccinated?
Then I'm going to have a problem.
Yeah, because they already are vaccinated to attend school.
Joe,
They've already gone to their
that's true.
pediatrician and
That's
gotten
true.
vaccines.
Yep.
A bunch of other shots. That's true. Joe, I emailed you this link to this Business Insider story titled "How a Supreme Court Decision from 1905 Set the Stage for Vaccine Mandates." And Chris, from what and I've been reading it off and on here, from what I've been reading, it's legal. They can do this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me
can do this.
take a stab at clarification. All right.
All right.
Never before. Now, I've said many times during the now almost 2 years of COVID. I've said many times.
God, it feels like a lot longer than that.
I've said many times. The country's never acted this way before. It seemed to me.
Yes, you said
it's
that,
never
yes.
acted this way before, and I think I'm narrowing in on what that means. The advent of the ability of anyone to instantly weigh in on any topic through social media has muddied the waters. You're getting bombarded all across the spectrum with people, by people, virtually all of whom don't know what they're talking about. I'm not talking about you, and I'm not talking about you just read. What I'm suggesting is we are inundated with social messaging from the time you get up in the morning till the time you go to bed. And that's what's different about this. That's what didn't happen in the Spanish flu outbreak. That's what didn't happen during swine flu. That's what didn't happen at the Hong Kong outbreak of 1968. They came and went because we didn't have the ability to pretend we were experts by clicking on our phone.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris noted that. Okay. I don't know where that sentence was, but he was decrying the amateur voices that are driving him crazy, and he deserves to be driven crazy because he knows what the hell he's talking about.
Of course he does. Yes.
And we don't.
Well, all of the people that wrote into you obviously are informed people
Right,
that know what
right,
they're talking about.
right.
Do you have his phone number? I'd love to talk to him right now.
You wouldn't be able to reach him right now. He's
He's a little busy.
a busy guy.
Reiterate what you said about children and natural antibodies, and they might have the COVID and might not even know it. Is what I just said correct?
I didn't say that. I didn't.
No,
say
I'm
that.
talking to Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have it right here. Oh shoot, I just lost it. Give me a second, Kenny. I'll bring it back up.
My question is it worse? Now, these are questions I'd have for the doctor, and not just for us three dummies. Is it worse if the kid gets COVID in some cases? Would it be worse if the kid didn't have the shot? I'm referring to
That's
the
what
kid
Chris
as
is
he.
saying.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Here it
Yes.
is, Kenny. An FDA panel voted to move forward with the COVID vaccines for children ages 5 to 11. The CDC estimated that 42% of kids in this age group already had COVID as of June 2021. Given the recent wave, it's likely that over half of the kids in the U.S. already had COVID and have natural immunity.
Tell me your source for this again.
This is from the CDC.
Okay. Either way, though, shot or no shot, vaccine or no vaccine, it's still there's still a possibility. And even if the kid doesn't know he has the COVID, it's still getting spread, correct? Mm-hmm. That would be another question I'd ask the doctor. Okay.
Well, and that's well, go ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, all I was going to add to that was, whether it's a child ages 5 to 11, or whether it's a 40-year-old dummy that works in a podcast, whoever, if someone already has natural immunity because they had already had COVID, my whole argument, what's the point of getting the vaccine if I've already got natural immunity?
You fall in line with Dr. Scott Jensen, who I believe had the COVID. So he claims he has natural antibodies, and therefore he has not had the shot. But he routinely recommends that certain patients that he sees get the vaccination.
Let me repeat perhaps the most critical sentence.
So far out of my comfort zone.
I know,
here.
and I'm trying to save us all. Let me repeat the most critical sentence written by Dr. Chris. COVID is a much bigger problem. Now one of the top 10 causes of death in childhood. If kids don't die, many can get terrible side effects like myocarditis. It's a heart problem, which happens far more in infected people than those vaccinated.
Okay.
He's championing the idea, yes, get vaccinated. It works. They're safe. The data has followed its procedures. There's been 3 phases. All 3 emailers told us this today.
Right. And I'm down with that. And another question I would like to ask him, how many instances or what has happened to the kids who have had negative reactions, bad reactions to the vaccine? Has that, in fact, killed them or harmed them for life? Or is it like your sister and a bunch of people we know, adults, who have suffered for 3-4 days and then it goes away? You know what that would be another question I would like to ask the doctor.
There again, you are making a statistical presumption.
I'm not. I'm asking a question. I'm asking for data.
Okay.
I have no presumptions here at all.
Okay. Because what I was going to say is that it may not, well, you can't say that to somebody who lost a child. I was going to say it may not be statistically significant how many people have had adverse reactions to the vaccine. It may be, obviously, not enough have stopped the release of the vaccine.
There you go. That's
not enough have stopped the release of the Pfizer for kids.
That's
did phase
the harsh truth, right?
Then they succeeded, so they get phase 2. Then they succeeded, they get phase 3. And now, as soon as next week, like the one woman who wrote, she can't wait to get her kids vaccinated. She believes that that's what she should do in their best interests.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything we said yesterday. Well, maybe we intimated that. Why don't you people just wait a while and see if this works? Well, that's not practical. That's my naivete. Wait, when would be the deadline for me to wait until?
You know what? I don't know if I said that out loud, but that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And I guess my biggest point of contention is, I don't know, again, when this happened, but when was it just so comfortable for a lot of people to decide that they were going to tell other people what to do?
1905, according to what I'm reading.
But do you know what I'm getting at? It really has been enhanced since the pandemic
Chris,
started.
All my life, when people have told me to do one thing, I've done the other. That's because I'm mentally ill.
Go back to...
So I understand your point of view, Chris.
Go back to the political divide in the country. The political divide in the country is the direct source of much of this confusion.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
That's fair.
In fact, it's the only source of this confusion.
Like I said, and I guess I forgot that Palenti was so on board with the vaccination. So why didn't that put me at ease? It should have, if I've accidentally politicized this in my own mind.
Let me put this in a framework. as a direct result of the political divide, it was easy to lose sight of the idea that scientists, doctors, epidemiologists, and researchers were doing what they've always done. What they've always done, without political implications. They were testing and trials and going through phases, and with better technology, they were able to hasten the development of the vaccines. But because of the political divide, there is a faction of the country that believes it's the government trying to control us.
Yep.
And that's the direct result of the great Greek chorus of the unwashed with one of these bleeping phones in their hand.
Yep.